For everything from video games, comic books, films, and beyond, you're listening to the Geek Guy Podcast with your host, Albanese, here on the Slam Sessions Podcast Network. What's up, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Geek Guy Podcast. I'm Albanese, and of course, if you want to follow us on social media, find us on Twitter, at the Slam Sessions. Of course, the Geek Guy Podcast is a part of the Slam Sessions Podcast Network. Today, we're going to go into one of the biggest things that was just released, the Injustice 2 trailer. We're going to talk a little bit about The Rock meeting up with Henry Cavill and, talking about a little bit about, what that could mean for the DCEU. And we're going to go a little bit into a couple of other things that have majorly happened, one of which is the Defenders poster that was just released with all the characters and their promotional shots and what that can mean for the Marvel Netflix universe. So we're going to start off with the trailer for Injustice 2. Now, I'm a huge video game fan. I really enjoyed the first Injustice video game. I thought it was a fantastic storyline. They did a really good job in making Superman seem just so vicious and violent and making him, out to be a villain, showing us what we can get if Superman was ever a villain in the DC universe. This time, it's looking a little bit different. It looks as if Brainiac is now the main villain of this game, which is really cool. I feel like Brainiac is one of those characters that kind of doesn't get the credit that he deserves. Brainiac's always been a really cool character in the comics, and this is kind of one of those things that can introduce us to Brainiac, and maybe this will, make a little room for him in the DCEU. I like the idea that Brainiac is the main villain of this. It really adds a lot to this game, adds a lot to the story, and the story looks pretty crazy. We saw the story trailer for the game, and everything isn't completely clear. With that being said, I think that's a little bit better because it's just like when we see trailers for movies, we kind of always want to be a little bit more surprised rather than know everything that's going to go on. I'm not a big fan of seeing movie trailers where you get, or even video game trailers, where you get the whole story in there. I think that Marvel has done a pretty good job in hiding exactly what's going to happen in their films within their trailers. DC's been doing, similar and a similar thing, and one of the franchises that's been doing a great job of that over the past two movies that they've done has been Star Wars, where we saw The Force Awakens and Rogue One. The trailers looked absolutely amazing, but we weren't 100% sure of everything that was going to go on. There weren't key scenes revealed. There was a lot to discover when you went to go see the movie, and this is going to be really good for the DC Injustice 2 game, being that we don't go in there knowing exactly what's going to happen. It's going to be fun. It looks like it's going to be cinematic. There's going to be it looks like there's going to be a lot of really cool cutscenes, a lot of really cool fights, a lot of different stuff going on in there. And I think this is going to be a really cool game. One of the couple of things that stood out for me in the trailer, the Batman versus Robin fight. I wonder what's going to go on with that. You see, student versus teacher, almost like father versus son, Batman versus Robin. That's an interesting concept. The Wonder Woman and Supergirl fight was really cool. Two of the most powerful women in the DC universe going at it one-on-one. Batman and Superman show up in the middle of that. I don't know where that's going to go. That seems really interesting. The Darkseid tease at the end, I don't know if Darkseid will have anything to do with the main portion of the story. It looks like he's just going to be a downloadable character if you buy the game early. That's a cool tease. I don't know if that means Darkseid will be a main portion of this video game, as in the storyline. But Darkseid is, a lot of people complain about Thanos. They think that Thanos is a clone of Darkseid. There's a lot of comparisons that are made between Marvel and DC characters. Hawkeye and Green Arrow, Darkseid and Thanos are, often compared. A lot of guys share similar, mindsets, movesets, personalities, weapon choices, and all that kind of stuff. But Darkseid is really, one of the biggest, most badass characters in the DC universe, and I really hope that they do a little bit more with Darkseid. I'd love to see Darkseid in the DCEU, but to really introduce him and his powers and his moveset into a video game really kind of gives us the opportunity to explore Darkseid a little bit more, and it gives us the opportunity to maybe see that Darkseid might become a pretty major character within the DC universe when it comes to being video games and television over the next couple of years. DC's done a lot of really good. I mean, me personally, I believe DC's done a pretty good job with their movie franchises. I saw the Batman versus Superman extended cut, the Ultimate Edition, and I don't know what a lot of people's complaints were about that movie when I saw the Ultimate Edition, because I did not see the original theatrical version. When I heard the trailer, I'm sorry, when I heard that the movie was coming out, but they were already planning on doing the Ultimate Edition, I wasn't going to go see the theatrical release. I knew that wasn't the complete movie. I thoroughly enjoyed BVS. I may be in the minority, but then again, I'm a big comic book fan, but also I can appreciate taking the idea of what the comics has given us and separating them from what's going to be on the big screen and in video games as well. These are different stories with the same characters, just at different angles. And I like the fact that DC is kind of exploring that. I think Suicide Squad was such a fun movie. I think a lot of people gave it a lot of negative publicity, but I mean, it made a lot of money, and isn't that what everybody wants to see? They want to see these movies make a lot of money. They want to see them be successful. You want to see these movies keep getting made. Yes, you want the quality to go up, and I think with the Justice League trailer that dropped a few weeks ago, well, actually, I'm sorry, a few months ago, we saw that DC is taking a step in the right direction. I think Ben Affleck is having a very positive impact on the DCEU. Getting back to the game, though, how about, just planets exploding in the middle of nowhere? I mean, that's just a cool concept, just, whole Earth's just being demolished in the blink of an eye. And the Superman scene, man, that's a heart-wrenching scene. Him holding what looks to be the dead body of Lois, looking into her stomach, seeing that she's pregnant. He'll never have that child, really gives us an idea of that Superman is, as much as he's a god, it also has some, human-like mortal qualities. And I think that's a really good tease. Pull on the heartstrings a little bit, making us really think that Superman is, a little bit more human than we kind of make him out to be. I got to say, I'm really excited for this game. I'm a big fan of fighting games. I'm a big fan of what DC's done when it comes to their fighting games. I played the Mortal Kombat versus DC game. I wasn't really, thoroughly impressed with the idea, but I think that it was a good stepping stone to get their mechanics down. I think Injustice was a great game with a great story and a great replayability mode, trying to play with all the characters, running through the entire game, having a lot of fun playing with my friends with that. And I think that this is going to just get better. I really like the idea of having the ability to play as guys like the Flash and, Green Arrow. I mean, we grew up on Marvel games. DC really didn't have a lot of, didn't have like the big fighting games, but Marvel had a really good fighting game franchises. They teamed up with Capcom. We had the Street Fighter versus the X-Men versus Street Fighter games. The Capcom versus X-Men games. It's really a cool, concept of, with what Marvel was able to do when it comes to that. I'm gonna probably at one point do a whole podcast just on Marvel versus Capcom 2. The fighting engine, what that meant for video games. With the new Marvel vs. Capcom game coming out, that big announcement, is just a huge thing for video game fans all over. I know 3 wasn't what we all expected. I don't think it was as good as we maybe expected it to, and maybe they can kind of address that when they make a 4th one. But at this point, I think that DC's doing a really good job in getting their franchises solidified. And having a big game like Injustice is a really good stepping stone for DC to start exploring some other characters, seeing what the interest is, gauging what everybody's reaction is towards them, and then putting them into a major film franchise. With that being said, the Injustice trailer was fantastic. I recommend, if you guys haven't seen it, to go take a look at it. It's really cool. It looks like it's going to be a really badass game. We're going to move on from that, and we're going to talk really, really briefly, because there's not much to talk about. Superman and Black Adam had sat down and had some coffee, it looked like, or had a beer. Henry Cavill and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who, of course, Henry Cavill playing Superman, and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson has signed on to play Black Adam, sat down, and there's a lot of rumors going around that maybe Black Adam will be in the next Superman film. Be a good introduction for The Rock as that character, but, I think that, a Black Adam, having Shazam versus Black Adam is going to really be, a cool film. I think Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson being a part of a superhero movie was inevitable. I'm surprised that Marvel didn't scoop him up to make him something at one point, because I feel that he's such a big actor that there's just so many roles he could have played in the Marvel universe. But DC was smart in getting him signed on, getting him in a room with their people, pitching him a great idea, giving him a little bit of freedom to maybe even choose what kind of character he wanted to play, because The Rock is he's a franchise name. The guy has made more movies over the past, I want to say the past 3 or 4 years than any other person in Hollywood. He's the highest grossing actor of 2016 in terms of how much his films that came out made. And, wherever The Rock goes, whatever screen he's on, people go to see it because The Rock is an entertaining character. I happen to be a big professional wrestling fan. That's, of course, the Slam Sessions Network was founded on the Slam Sessions podcast, which is all about professional wrestling. So as you guys who know me know, I'm a really big wrestling fan, but I'm also just as big of a fan of The Rock as an actor. Then The Rock's doing an incredible job, and I think professional wrestlers are now starting to get a little bit more into the film industry with WWE Studios. There's that huge announcement that we're going to see the John Cena in a scene in Thor Ragnarok is a really cool concept. I like the fact that The Rock, though, is making this a priority. He's got so many other films that he's doing, trailers released like with Baywatch and all the other movies that he's doing, the franchises that he's in with Fast and the Furious. It's a big coup for DC to get somebody that big on their side. Moving on, we're going to talk a little bit about the Marvel franchise when it comes to Netflix. As you guys may have seen, if you haven't, I would pull it up online at one point. If you listen to this, Marvel released the Netflix poster for the Defender series. The Defender series is a little bit different than they were in the comics. The cast is going to be all the Marvel heroes that we've seen on Netflix, minus the Punisher. I think that's a really cool concept that Marvel set all these up, kind of like they did with the Avengers. The Avengers, they gave all these guys these solo films, put them all into a film together. And Marvel did the exact same thing by putting all the Defenders into solo series on Netflix and then bringing them together in order for us to see them, fight as a unit. We're going to see pretty soon Danny Rand's character of Iron Fist in a series. We have Jessica Jones, which I thought was a fantastic series. I think Marvel did a great job with the Jessica Jones series, making a very strong female character, making her not seem like some weak little girl who needed a guy in order to help her, defeat, the big bad guy. Marvel had to tame down a lot of what went on in the Alias comics when it came to Jessica Jones. But they still did a great job in representing that character really well and making her a strong character for the franchise. Now, with that being said, we also have seen, the 2 seasons of Daredevil were absolutely phenomenal. Daredevil has been often scrutinized after that horrible Ben Affleck movie. A lot of people say it's horrible. I actually didn't dislike that movie. I actually thought it was pretty good. Apparently, there's also an extended edition of that film floating around somewhere, which makes it a little bit better from what I understand. I've yet to see that. I actually only found out about this maybe a couple of months ago. But to have Daredevil be the anchor, like Iron Man was, the anchor of the franchise of the Netflix series, was the right thing to do. And we got a lot of really good villains. Vincent D'Onofrio, when he was casted as Kingpin, I was a little bit skeptical. I'm not a big Vincent D'Onofrio fan, per se. I've never really enjoyed his acting. I think that, maybe I just haven't seen him in enough stuff to judge. But I think he did an awesome job as Kingpin. I'd love to see his Kingpin on the big screen. And even though he just came out recently and said it's probably not going to happen, eventually I think we all want to see these Netflix shows blend in with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But Daredevil was a fantastic series. The 2 seasons were unbelievably well done. They were well written. They were well acted. And, the introduction of the Punisher, I was at the John Barenthal panel at New York Comic Con, and John Barenthal is so excited to be playing the Punisher, and I think he's the perfect guy to play it. He's such a great character actor. He's such a fun guy to talk to. If you have a chance to go, maybe I'm sure it was filmed and it was put on YouTube. Seeing that entire thing that he did at Comic-Con, I think it was such a fantastic introduction to John Barenthal and what he brings to this series. Well, I'm sorry, this is the Marvel Universe in general. Now, we don't think, now there's no confirmation that he'll be in the Defenders, but there is, of course, the other character that's going to be a major player in that is Luke Cage. Now, I have to say that Luke Cage may have been one of the best series I've ever watched, hands down. And this is going across from everything. I'm a big Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fan. I know maybe it got a little slow at points, and a lot of people had to scrutinize it a little bit because it wasn't exactly maybe what everybody wanted. I really thought it was really supposed to be that connection and that inner just what was going on in between the big Marvel films, and we haven't really gotten that too much. But what we do get with the Defenders is a completely different street level gang of heroes that are dealing with street level problems. The Avengers are superheroes. These are powered individuals who are running around the streets. Yes, there would be a huge coup to get all these guys onto the big screen, try to defeat a guy like Thanos, because you kind of need everybody. And that these guys have to be on the radar of the Avengers. Coulson has to know about it. I mean, the idea is that we know about all these enhanced characters. So, with all that being brought together into one big thing to close out to a point, with maybe even though it's we're on phase 3 of the Marvel, we're moving towards phase 3 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Phase 1 altogether, with bringing all the Netflix characters, all the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. characters into one, cohesive deal, putting them on the big screen, putting them in the Avengers, in the Infinity War movie, would really be a huge coup for Marvel. It would be such a big thing for fans. But Luke Cage, just in himself, just made me realize that there is just such a, it's just so timely, and they can just do such a great job in introducing these characters in series and giving them, a different identity. I mean, we saw that the Ghost Rider films with Nicolas Cage were, subpar at best. And then we saw the Robbie Reyes portrayal of the Ghost Rider on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And I gotta say, I can't complain about what they did with Ghost Rider. I think they did a fantastic job. They introduced a new version. We saw that Johnny Blaze was kind of the guy who, guided Robbie Reyes and was the spirit that took him over. I think if Robbie Reyes gets his own Netflix series, that'd be a really cool way to cross everything over between those two shows and maybe then bring us into the Infinity War. But I mean, that might not happen in time. With that being said, the Defender series looks to be, they announced it as being a shorter series. They believe it's only going to be 10 to 13 episodes. And that's a really good idea because there's so many hugely powerful people in there. A lot of people having their own stories, kind of getting mixed and mashed together. It might there might be a lot of push and pull on that. The main idea for me is that I want to see Netflix keep going with what they have, and what they have is a fantastic series with a fantastic crew and a fantastic cast, and it really looks like they're going to be a really solid. It's going to be a really solid series. I can't wait for the Defenders. I really think that we're going to really get to see a great group effort on and in a series, and we don't have to sit there. I love the Netflix idea where we don't have to sit there and wait. We can watch the next one one after the other, and it's like a 13-hour film. And Netflix has done a great job. The Marvel team has done a great job with the Netflix series to bring that all together. That's pretty much the bigger news that came out of everything this week. It's a little bit of a shorter podcast, but I really wanted to bring you guys a little bit of what was going on. And next week I'm going to try to do a little bit more preparation. I think it's going to be a little hard once we, once some of these bigger movies are released. There's going to be a lot to talk about. Once some of the major actors are revealed for some other roles, there's going to be a lot to talk about. But, this podcast isn't just going to all be about, superhero stuff and Star Wars stuff. It's going to be about video games too. But unfortunately, I've been a little bit slacking on the video game front. So I'm hoping to bring in some guests, make this a little bit more of an interactive, more of a fun podcast. What I'd like for you guys to do as fans is to go on youtube.com and, when you're listening to this, and throw some comments out there. Tell me what you guys want me to cover. Tell me what you guys want to hear. Give me some questions. Give me some suggestions. And I'll definitely incorporate that in my next few podcasts. And if you guys like it the way it is, then, hey, cool. I'm here and I'm going to keep coming to you every week and trying to give you the best possible podcast that I can. With that being said, as usual, I'm going to leave you guys off with my comic of the week. This week, I'm going to give you one that, I feel like I'm going to kind of, give you guys some stuff to read that I think are some of the essentials when it comes to reading comics. As a matter of fact, I think the most essential comic book to read, and if you're a comic book collector or you're a fan of these movies and you're just starting to get into comics, one of the most essential comics to read is The Watchmen. Alan Moore does a fantastic job on The Watchmen, portraying, a whole bunch of heroes and really had no connection to the DC universe at all. And, making them relevant. And we're just seeing a resurgence now within the new DC relaunch where we're seeing some of the Watchmen characters being introduced back within the DC universe. So what I would suggest is before you kind of go on and read some of these newer comics, go back and read The Watchmen. Don't watch the movie. The movie wasn't bad, but it's not the comic. The comic is one of the most amazing comics in the world, and every time you read it, you discover a little bit of something new in there. There's so many nuances and little things about this comic that you can probably go online and find a million things written about this comic, little intricate things that you missed the first 3, 4, 5 times you've ever read it. I was fortunate enough to take a comic book class in college. John Jay College in New York City, fortunately for me, has a class on comic books. And The Watchmen was a required reading in that class. And I was not disappointed. I think that it was one of the most fantastic classes I ever took. And it really was one of the best comics I ever got to read was in that class when it came to The Watchmen. And I got a lot of stuff about The Watchmen explained to me that I wouldn't have caught if I would have read it 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 times. It doesn't make a difference how many times I would have read it. I wouldn't have caught on to some of these things. Read the comic, go back, go online, look up a whole bunch of stuff after you're done reading it, and go back and read it a second time because The Watchmen is one of the greatest comics ever written. That's it for today, guys. Thank you for listening to the Geek Guy Podcast on the Slam Sessions Podcast Network. As usual, please give us a follow on Twitter at the Slam Sessions to get up, a little bit of rest of all the stuff that we have releasing. Go out, support the other podcasts, the Opening Whistle NFL podcast, the Slam Sessions podcast about professional wrestling, and thank you for all your support and all the listening you guys do. Until next time, I'm Albert Albanese signing off, and may the force be with you. Thanks for listening to the Geek Guy Podcast right here on the Slam Sessions Podcast Network. You can follow us on Twitter at the Slam Sessions. We'll see you guys next time, and may the force be with you.